Okay, should be live streaming.
Okay, are we on the air?
Yep, we're live.
Oh boy, we are live at the wonderful Griffith Observatory with yet another mix. Yeah, I keep stepping out of the camera. See, so only the people in the room can see me now. Okay, so yet another meeting of the Los Angeles Astronomical Society. Our first order of business, as usual, is to ask if we have any new members in the room. Aha. Your job is to tell us who you are and why you're here.
Okay, I'm Nick Gautier. I'm a retired professional astronomer, but I have an interest in amateur astronomy, and you guys are the business in town, so that's why I'm here.
Any other new members? Do we have old members who like used to be here 20 years ago and suddenly decided to come back? Aha. No. Okay.
Okay,
So,
do I qualify for that?
well, maybe you do. Tell us why you qualify for that.
Well, I escaped the land of perpetual smog. I went up the creek, the Colorado, over the hills to the Rockies, and I'm now stuck here in Denver, or the Denver area.
Stuck in Denver. Well, why don't you come back to Los Angeles?
The closest I've ever come over the last maybe 15, 20 years has been out to RTMC.
Well, you know, as a former president of the Los Angeles Astronomical Society, you could come here and take up the mantle of leadership again, you know.
Oh, something about when elephants fly. I
As you
made it to my 50th, I think it was, or maybe it was one a little earlier, of my high school reunions. And the traffic, I cannot believe it. It took me longer to get from San Bernardino out to Manhattan Beach than it did to get from Denver to San Bernardino. And if I'd known that, I'd have parked the car and ridden my bicycle and gotten out there in half the time.
Yeah, as you can see, Furry Face is very anxious to come back here and join us in Los Angeles. So I do want to mention, because word of it got out kind of late, the annual banquet is Sunday, January 19th at the Quiet Cannon, the Spyglass One Room, same as it was last time. There's an email message in your box with the link to sign on. It costs the same as it did last year. The menu's the same as it was last year. The room is the same as it was last year. We're going to have the same guy with the photo booth as we had last year. We will not have the same speaker as we had last year. This year, Andy Bowden, who is officially the deputy director for optical astronomy at Caltech and is really unofficially the director of Palomar Observatory, is going to talk to us about the drawings and design diagrams Russell Porter did for the 200-inch at Palomar and for Griffith Observatory. And Andy is well suited for this because while he's not busy directing astronomy, he's a furniture maker and has a particular love for classical old-time furniture. So he knows what he's doing and he knows what he's talking about. It will be great. It'll be a great banquet. You'll love it. I expect everybody in this room, as soon as you get home tonight, just log in, get your email, go to the link, pay the fee, sign up, and come to the banquet. And I'm going to remember each one of your faces. And if you're not there, you have another furry face to worry about.
You might ask about
No.
new members on Zoom, Tim.
What was that?
You might ask about new members on Zoom.
Oh, I had kind of forgotten about that. It's a good
Yeah.
thing to remind me because I'm old. Is there a new member on Zoom?
There would be, yes. Hello.
Hello. Superman. I did not know Superman had joined the LAAS, but I'm glad to have him aboard. Tell us who you are and why you're here.
So I'm Greg Schwartz. Been doing astronomy stuff for a long time, particularly as a scout when I was much younger, and just moved to LA 5 months ago. Came to one of the star parties and completely fell in love with it again, particularly watching everyone look at the moon and just go, oh! So joined the next morning and just here to help. I'm not going to be able to buy a telescope for quite a while because I'm moving around a lot, but I'll help as I can.
Yeah, come to the banquet. Maybe we'll figure a way for you to win one. Like the way I said that, don't you? I don't remember the star party dates, but David usually does. Next public star party date is January 4th. We don't have a general meeting in January because the banquet takes care of that, but we will meet as usual on the second Monday in February and so on and so forth for the rest of the year. Yeah. Sure, you can always watch our board meetings on Zoom. You don't get to vote unless you're a member of the board. That's right.
Correction.
Being bored at a board meeting.
It's the audio on Zoom, not the live, not the video.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, and it's on the discussion groups under board information.
Mm-hmm. And next year I will not be on the board because I've been on the board for like 33 or 34 of the last 35 years, and I figure I earn a break. So next year you will not hear me or see me at the board meetings. Don't worry about it. Come to Garvey on the Wednesday night and you'll find me. Is there anything else I should have announced but didn't? The what? Oh, yes, the election. Spencer has the election results. Spencer.
All right, let me share the screen. Let's see. Okay, everybody see the screen? So the officers, President is Keith Armstrong, Vice President Victoria Fagan, Spencer, me, the Secretary, and John O'Brien's the Treasurer. Board members, we have some new board members. Laura May, Daryl Dooley is past president, is on the board now. Jason Fields, Ted Moss is a new member. Greg Thompson, Roman, Shane, and Dave Yackerson, and Andrew is the alternate. So the officers and board will be installed at the January 19th annual banquet. So thanks everybody who voted, and congratulations to all the candidates who have a seat on the board and the officers.
I think Laura May's last name should have Abron.
Oh.
Am I correct?
Yep, you're right.
Yeah. But thank you all. Yes, thank you for voting. Thank you for running. Yeah. So if you come to the annual banquet and you'll get to see the old people go away and the new people come in, and a lot of the board is old people, but there's a lot of new people on the board too, and that's what we need. So is there anything else I should have announced but didn't? Because I'm old and sometimes I forget. We're good, he says. Okay, so we have our show and tell meeting in December, and the show and tell this time around is going to be our imagers, many of whom I believe were in the imaging contest and may have been prize winners therein. We have 10 people presenting, and we really need to be finished by around 9:30 or so. We need time to do the door prizes. And so we do have a limited amount of time in which to do our presentations and questions. And so you may have to save your questions until afterwards so we can get through the presentations. I know that's not what everybody wants to do, but we do have limited time. So I mean, we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions for each presenter, and that's pretty much it.
So we have
And
one person bailed on us. He's sick. That's Jeff. The second speaker will not be here.
Oh, Jefferson Seidel?
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so we're going to do John Fizzinotti and then Gilbert McFarlane on Zoom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, John, get up here. Now let's see if I can remember how to do this. There we go. Okay.
All right. Hello. Hi. I'd like to thank the people who voted for my image. I appreciate your vote, and I'm glad you like it. The pictures of the Milky Way over the Methodist Church at the old mining town of Bodie, California. Bodie is north of Mono Lake near Bridgeport. It was a gold mining town that saw its heyday in the 1870s and the 80s. Bodie is so remote that the night sky is rated at Bortle 1, which is the darkest level on the Bortle scale. Bodie is a California state park which controls visitation in order to preserve the town. The town is open to the public from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, the interiors of the buildings are off limits. Nearly all the buildings are closed to the public. But 2 years ago, I participated in a Bodie photography workshop. The workshop leader had arranged with the Park Service for us to visit the town after dark to shoot the night sky. On another day of the workshop, we were allowed to photograph the interiors of a limited number of buildings. So my main motivation in enrolling in the workshop was the opportunity to shoot the night sky. The photo was taken on September 30th, 2022. On that night, there was a 4-day-old crescent moon low in the southwest. Early in the evening, the moon provided just the right amount of fill light to illuminate the townscape without washing out the night sky. But to get this picture facing southwest, I waited until after moonset. Without moonlight in a Bortle 1 location, the townscape went pitch black. Workshop participants came prepared to light paint the buildings when necessary, and I brought a variety of lights, but settled on a battery-operated LED light that also had controls that varied the brightness and the color temperature. So if you're not familiar with what light painting is, while the camera is doing the exposure, I'm holding a light and I'm just waving it around, lighting up the side of the building. For the details of this photo, it was shot with a Nikon D810A camera body. This is Nikon's version of a camera optimized for astrophotography. Among its other features, it has extended response in the deep red part of the spectrum where hydrogen alpha emissions are the brightest. It's a full-frame sensor equivalent to a 35mm camera. The camera was set to ISO 6400. The white balance, or color temperature if you prefer, was set to 4,550 degrees Kelvin. The color space was Adobe RGB. The lens I used was a Sigma 28mm f1.4 art lens. My exposure was 10 seconds at f2.8. I chose 10 seconds to minimize the streaking that the stars would create as they were moving across the sky. Although I brought in my iOptron star tracker with me, which would have permitted longer exposures, I didn't use it because I deemed polar aligning it for every shot would have been taken too much time and effort, because I was walking around the town photographing different buildings and I'd have to set up and polar align each time. So I just used a stationary tripod. I chose f2.8 because I find stopping down any lens about 2 f-stops noticeably reduces the vignetting, making it easier to produce a final image without a bright hot spot in the center and light fall off around the edges. So I set up my LED light beyond the left edge of the picture and directed it to illuminate the east wall of the church. The more distant lights in the street were spillover lights from other photographers participating in the workshop. We sometimes got in each other's way, especially when light painting, but I feel in this image that it benefited from the additional lights illuminating the street and the building across the street. The workshop was a success for me, as I've had 2 other photos published by the Bodie Foundation. It's a nonprofit organized to promote and protect Bodie. Yeah, the foundation published a calendar, and one of my interior shots was the photo for the month of May in this year's calendar, and another of my Milky Way shots, this one over the Miners Union Hall on Main Street, is the cover photo for next year's calendar. So I'm glad I signed up for the workshop. That's it for me.
I can entertain a question from in the room and one question from Zoom if there are any for John. Back there.
Hi, thank you for that quick question. You said that if you were going to track the night sky, if you had tracked the night sky, would you have had to superimpose the building separately? Because wouldn't the, okay. He nods yes.
Good. And we can stand one question from Zoom if there is one. Nobody on Zoom. Okay, now, thank you, John. The next speaker on our invitee list is not here, and so the next speaker on our schedule will be Gilbert McFarlane, who will come in via Zoom, and he's Saturn imaging with a vignette with a vintage amateur-built 12-inch Newtonian. So, Gilbert, you're on.
Okay, am I up?
You are.
Yep. All right. So I love planet season. It's kind of the time of year when Saturn and Jupiter and Mars are up. I image from my backyard, and planets are good for a backyard where you can go out and catch those moments of good seeing. One thing I like about planetary imaging is that pretty much 10 to 20 minutes of image acquisition is all you need. Because if the scene's good, you have an image. If it's not good, you're not going to get much of anything. So having the ability to go out night after night and check it is kind of where the power is. The telescope to the left there is one that I went out to Arizona with my brother. I dragged him along to bring this sucker back, several hundred pounds. It was built in the Sacramento area back in the 70s. Unfortunately, it had been left out to the elements, and so the main mirror had gotten corroded. So I had to kind of fine grind it and repolish it and refigure it. You can see on the right, this is not a computer operated telescope by any means. When I image, I sit there and use this old kind of controller to manually guide it to keep the image in that little teeny tiny spot of the camera. One thing that's kind of hard to get around is that planets are so small that no matter what you do, unless you have a really big, like 60-inch telescope, which would be nice, is that it's hard to get resolution. So planetary imaging is one of those things that the bigger the telescope, the better. Both it makes the image brighter so you can have a faster exposure time. And also you get more resolution. And whereas in deep sky imaging, you're always kind of limited by the scene as well. But with planetary imaging, you're taking a video. And so you can snag by software these very short exposures and put them together. But the better the scene, the more and better single frames you have to combine together. This is kind of my basic, thing that I put in the eyepiece holder. So it's a TeleVue 2.5 power mate, as well as atmospheric dispersion corrector. that I used if the planet is about 50, 60 degrees in altitude or lower, because the sky ends up acting like a big lens and disperses the color. So you get a tiny bit more resolution. And when I say tiny, I really mean a tiny bit more. And a relatively inexpensive slow color camera, I don't really get it. You could get a tiny bit more resolution if you used a black and white camera and went through filters and added it together. I'm willing to give it up for convenience. Also, some of the planets, specifically Jupiter, move so fast, kind of rotating through all the filters in time to where you then can combine them gets difficult. And I'm glad for that because I'm not going to do it. The software I use is like pretty much everyone else in the universe. I use AutoStacker to combine it. This is kind of what I typically do when I first get a video is I'll do a short, I'll pick one of the videos and do 50%, 30%, 20%, 10% pull out of the best frames, and then kind of process them individually and see if any of them are any good. And, kind of pick, pretty much you're choosing between resolution or sharpness on the like 10% side, but then you get more noise. So you're kind of fighting between noise and sharpness. Nancy? Then for sharpening, Registat 6, I don't know, it's recently I've just been using Photoshop with their Smart Sharpen, and it ends up in about the same place. I also use WinJupos if I'm taking images of Jupiter, and so I have maybe 10 different videos, and each of those 10 videos come up with a single frame eventually. And then I combine those single frames together, and WinJupos will grab them and move them around with some sort of computer magic and essentially make the noise a little better. Again, it's a little better. This is all about trying to get things a little better and then kind of being happy with what you got. So this is kind of going back in time a bit. So just to kind of review some of my images over the last few years. And you can, with Saturn, notice how the tilt is changing. 20, 21, 23, and 24. And then just to kind of, for the fun of it, there's Mars, Jupiter. And this, now I want to know if anybody else sees this. To me, Jupiter looks a little grumpy. And then in this one, I'm not sure if Jupiter, that's Io and Io's shadow. But I don't know, when I looked at it, I thought, well, either Jupiter's smoking a cigar or he's sticking out his tongue. And until we meet the Jupiterites, I don't think we'll ever know. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Is there a question in the audience here for? Who was it? Oh, another. You mean Saturn? Yeah, the rings of Saturn will be edge on in March. Yeah.
And below the horizon, I think.
Yes, that's true.
That's why we.
Yeah. Well, I think we won't be able to see it, but
No, it'd be too close to the sun.
Yeah. How long will that last?
Yeah, I don't think very long, right? I mean, it was.
Well, depending upon the scope, it might last a month or so.
Interesting.
Okay, are there any questions from the Zoom crowd?
Gil, is that a cave Astrola?
No, it's not. It's a conglomeration of various things. As far as I can tell, I don't know where they got their castings from the main mount. It was obviously a machinist and a metal worker involved in Stockton. I got a reference from somebody years back, but I kind of lost it as to kind of who they were. But yeah, no, it's a hodgepodge kind of a thing. But it seems like the castings they must have gotten from somewhere, but they don't seem to have the same shape as the Astrola. But it's very similar.
Okay.
Okay, our next presenter is going to be Daniel Galuppi, and he's going to present from here. So I'm going to go back to our computer and get rid of John's slide. Assuming I know what I'm doing. Where's that?
Ha ha.
Ha ha ha. Is that the right thing? Oh. Yeah. Okay, is that the right slide? Okay, cool.
Hey everyone, I'm thrilled to be here tonight. I'd like to first of all thank the Los Angeles Astronomical Society for giving me the opportunity to share a photo of one of my favorite places to visit, which is Joshua Tree National Park. In June of 2020, I captured this image of Arch Rock located in White Tank Campground. That night was unique as the campground was closed due to a bee alert. I found myself in solitude in a normally very popular area. The camera I used is a Sony A7R Mark II with a Sony 24mm 1.4 G Master lens with an 8-star diffraction filter. The final image you see here consists of 21 single exposures taken at 10-second intervals and stitched together using a program called PT GUI and Adobe Lightroom. I hope you enjoy this glimpse into the beauty of the dark skies of Joshua Tree National Park. Thank you.
So is there a question for Daniel in here? There's a question right there. Let's get the microphone. He's asking about the diffraction spikes and the stitching.
Yeah, I think it's just the position, I think it was. So when there's
We can't hear you.
the diffraction spikes, it depends on just how high the stars were above, so it kind of gets a distortion because it's like a pretty big area. Welcome.
Is there a question from the Zoom crowd?
So you stitched together 21 images, sort of like a panorama?
Yeah, yes, that's correct. It's 3 rows, so 7, 7, 7.
Cool. Thank you. Now, John Park is next, and John is going to present via Zoom.
Yes.
Is John Park here?
I'll share the slide. Let me see. So this is the image. But first, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share one of my photos. This is the photo I took from SKS somewhere around May and April, and it was the moon was about half moon, but since I'm shooting only certain frequencies with narrowband, it didn't really affect the time of the shoot. The total integration was about 5 hours, and actually I shot a H alpha 03 and just RGB for stars, and it was actually quite shorter than I expected, but I think SKAS had at least very good skies for to produce such great results. And just to present The basic gear, I used a C11 inch with a reducer so that I can get a little bit faster exposure that's needed, and 26 which is a APS-C camera, and with the filters, so that I can shoot hydrogen alpha, O3, and RGB. The mount I used the SEM 70, which provided very stable guiding for this deep sky astrophotography, and everything was controlled by this small mini computer called ASI Air. And the acquisition, about 2 hours and 20 minutes for both hydrogen alpha and O3. And hydrogen alpha, it's basically the red light from atomic hydrogen, mostly the emission nebula is emitting hydrogen alpha. And O3 is a little bit of a fainter part of the nebula, which has the double ionized oxygen. And it's about green bluish spectrum, about 500 spectrum. And just for RGB stars, I only captured like 35 minutes, 7 minutes for each. I think it was pretty much good enough. And the software I used was I stacked and processed everything in PixInsight. And I had to use these 3 plugins, which basically, if you click, then everything is done for you. Basically, if you want to just extract the stars and have the starless image, you can just click with some parameters, a noise exterminator. This basically reduces a lot of noise, so you don't have to have like extreme amount of exposure time. And the blur exterminator, it really brings out a lot of details, which helped me get a lot of details from the image. And so this is the first initial combination I did with the HA and O3. Basically assigned HA to the red, O3 to the green and blue channels. And I had to use blur exterminator to make the star smaller and details a little bit more sharp. And after that, I removed the stars to get the starless image and did some like contrast work and getting a little bit more details out of the picture. And so just the RGB, this is only 35 minutes, but so you don't see a lot of details, but actually you get more natural star colors because you're actually shooting with broader spectrum. And this was processed exactly the same, except for I put saturation in the stars compared to the starless image. I put a little bit lesser saturation. And after that, since this was all stacked together with PixInsight, I basically just combined the image to be like this, and that's basically it. But yeah, that's how I processed it. But thanks so much for watching.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
Is there a question from the in-person audience? No, there isn't. Is there a question from the Zoom crowd? Oh boy, it was so stunning, nobody even has a question for you.
I have one. So was that image taken over several days, or
Yes. Thanks for that. So it was taken May. So I just had like a very short time from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. To get this Crescent Nebula. So I took it just 2 days. So it was a 2-day work. Yep.
How long was the integration time?
Yes. Total was 5 hours and 1 minute. But that's 1 minute is a little bit off, but it was pretty shorter than I expected. But I think um, the skies at that time, at least, was had a very good seeing, and it wasn't very um, affected by light pollution because this was shot from 3 nanometer narrowband. So I think that really helped it out.
So that's on 2 consecutive nights.
Yep, that's right.
Did you take down your equipment and put it back up, or just leave it?
Oh, just actually, I went back home, got some sleep, and did it again. Yeah, it's been like a 1 hour drive, so not really extremely far. So
Where were you when you made the images?
it was the SKS, the Ventura County that we all like to go for dark sky nights.
Good. It kind of looked like that from the pictures, but I just don't remember there being that many trees.
Oh yeah, I actually had to position the very a little bit off to the because like there are like a lot of trees in the eastern skies, so I had to like at least move it out of the way. And well, at that time, I don't think there were a lot of people because there was moon upside. So but yeah, I think I did actually position it correctly, so I wasn't really interfered by all those trees.
Lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Lockwood Valley site during this time of year, during winter, can get really cold, and so not that many people go there. But during the spring and summer, especially during the summer, it can be quite nice out there, and we do have a series of family nights. Watch the calendar, and during the summer, aside from the dark sky nights where people like this go and work, and if you shine light, nobody ever sees you again. But on a family night, you can go and, the lights shine. Nobody's got a lot to complain about. You can bring your kids and sometimes have a potluck. You should keep an eye on that because it's a really nice place. It's way out there where things get reasonably dark for being near Los Angeles. And what was that? Well, if you can become a star member by being a regular member for, I think, a year, and after a year, you need 2 already established star members to sponsor you, and then you make a request to the board, and the board usually approves you, and then you get the combination, and you can go out there whenever you want to. Otherwise, you have to go in the company of a star member as a guest. And so the star members technically open up the property for us on our monthly dark sky night every month, weather permitting. We have a dark sky night during the summer, the family nights. So if you really want to do what they've been doing, you want to become a star member and go out there whenever you like to. I actually don't know anything about it, so. Somebody's working on automating something out there. They're building a new observatory. And as you may already know, we had problems with county permitting, and all those problems are done. And we're building a robotic observatory. I think that's what it is. And a few others. And there's a whole bunch of telescopes out there. And it's a really great place for serious imagers and serious dark sky astronomers. And if you're not a serious dark sky astronomer, don't worry about it. Come to Garvey on Wednesdays. If you think that's a dark sky, and I know people who do, then you've been living under too many lights. So our next speaker is going to be Andrea Scarlett, who's here and is going to perform in person. Let me get this put back to where I think it belongs, and try once again to get this one. Let's see. I'm lost. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. There I am. Is that what I do? Okay. Which one is yours? Aha. Okay. Remember to hold the microphone close so people can hear you.
you, Tim. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for having this contest, and especially for having a smartphone category. Yeah, score. Some of you might be asking, like, well, why? Why would you want to use a smartphone? Well, why not? The camera sensors on phones have actually improved quite a lot over the years, and they continue to improve. And some of the smartphone manufacturers are actually including standard astro-friendly features. So let's get into this. Okay. There's my picture of Jupiter. Obviously not as good as Gilbert's, but hey, not bad for a smartphone, right? So the technique I used was a drift method with a lucky imaging, and drift method because I don't have a computerized telescope, so you're gonna see the planet drifting across your field of view. And you want to take a lot of frames, as much as you can. I took 4,007 frames for this example at 4K 30 FPS with a magnification of 170x. I'll briefly talk about my gear. I got a 8-inch Dobsonian. The eyepiece I used was a Explore Scientific 14mm 82 degree field of view, and that was Barlowed 2 times. And the phone I used was an iPhone 13 Pro with a Celestron NextYZ phone mount. And they call it NextYZ because you can manipulate the Y, Z, and the X axis, which makes it a lot easier to align the phone optics with the eyepiece. And of course, a counterweight because you got a lot of weight on the front of your scope. And a red flashlight. And this setup costed me around approximately $910. Not bad. And most of us have smartphones anyway, so I didn't include that in the cost. All right. The software I used was Nightcap. The reason why I use this app because it lets me manipulate the ISO, the exposure, and the white balance because I can't do that on my iPhone Pro. So it essentially turns it into like a DSLR camera. And you might not have to do this if you're like an Android user. It might come standard. You might be able to manipulate those features. And then I used PIP, which is a preprocessor that centers all your frames for you, because again the planet's going to be drifting across your field of view. So that program's going to get all the frames and put it in the center for you, get it ready for stacking. And then for that I used AutoStacker, which is actually no correction. I used Serial because I'm a Mac user, but AutoStacker is like the gold standard. And I used actually used Serial for the wavelets as well. Okay, next slide. Setup, typical setup. I use my cooling fan because it makes a difference. And then you want to align all your optics. Then, of course, once you get the focus, your desired focus, you want to lock that focuser and then attach the smartphone mount and then do all your aligning. I found it's best to kind of predetermine which camera is best on the back of your phone. For me, it was the telephoto lens you see on the top left. You can use a red. I use a red flashlight to help me align the optics. You can use any bright object like the moon or a street light. Okay, and this is kind of where all the capturing is done. You want to get the. I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but no, you can't. So once you see the object, across your field of view, that's kind of when you dial in your settings. You want to get the right exposure settings. For Jupiter, I found somewhere between like 50 and 80 for ISO. The low exposure, like around 1/70th. But you always want to visualize and kind of dial in and see what looks best. And then once you get your desired focus, that's when you start recording. You want to record not when it's right in right in your field of view because it might distort the image. You want to kind of like let it drift a little bit towards the center and then start recording. And then you want to stop before it leaves the frame. And do as many as you can before, Jupiter starts to rotate. And you want to try to keep a steady hand. Then you want to review your footage because when you hit record on your phone, it's going to shake, it's going to wobble the telescope a bit. So you kind of want to like maybe cut some of those frames out. And then next is where the magic happens. Oh, it's not working. I can't see. Oh, there it is. All right. So once you get all your footage, your raw footage, you put it into the PIP preprocessor. So that's going to center everything and get it ready for stacking. And the first step for processing, you want to stack all the images, and the program's gonna keep all the best frames and get rid of the rest of them, the low quality frames. And then the second process would be to bring out the details like the cloud bands, the terrestrial details, using the wavelets, as you see in the lower left. That's after the wavelets are applied. And you don't want to overdo it. Like I feel like I kind of overdid it in the final image, so it came out maybe a little too sharp and contrasty. And you can use post processing software like GIMP if you want to bring out the RGB, if you want to do it like RGB balance. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You're done. And there's some of my other works I've all done with a smartphone. And yeah, I was able to get the Orion Nebula. You could do deep sky stuff with smartphones if you have a steady mount and set the right exposure time. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you. Is there a question here? Yeah. So the question was whether or not she's using a less compressed video format.
So I used whatever the default was. I don't think I shot in RAW or ProRes because I don't have a really powerful computer, so I didn't really want to overload my processor. So, yeah. Any questions on Zoomland?
Yeah, question from Zoom. Did you have to deal with the autofocus? When I do iPhone photos on the Mount Wilson telescopes, I get a lot of purple blobs from autofocus. Did you have to deal with that at all, or?
So no, because I use the app, I got to override that, so I can manually focus.
Ah, okay,
with
great.
It's called the Nightcap app.
Nightcap app.
Nightcap, yes.
It's an iPhone app?
Oh. It's for iPhone and Android, I believe. Yeah, you can download it from the App Store.
Okay, Nightcap. Thank you.
You're welcome. Uh-huh. Yeah, so I'm looking at it, and there's a slider where you kind of dial in, and then on the phone, yeah, the phone's mounted over the eyepiece, so you got it. So I try to lock the focuser and let the phone do the rest. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, correct. You could do both too. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. That last question was about the focusing method, as you might guess. Okay, so our next presenter will also be in person, and that's Andy Sway. And Andy will be plugging in his own laptop. So I think that's this one. Okay. We're going to find out if this works. Hey, it actually does work.
All right. This is my lucky photo, or jet versus sun. This isn't the photo that won. Oh, sorry. My lucky photo is, this is not the photo, okay? It's kind of a process. I was using the C-Star, excuse me, ZWO, the S50. It's a really kind of cool robotic telescope. It's astrophotography and very small, all in one for about $500. I think on sale right now for $450. And I was doing a video capture of the sun. They provide with the C-Star a white filter. So built on, you just put it on. And I live in the foothills of Burbank, overlooking the Burbank airport. And I was shooting the sun about 5 p.m. on March 14th. And I didn't even know I got anything. So I was looking at this quite a few days later or weeks later, and I was just seeing if I was taking the video because I wanted to stack it and start getting into some processing. And I was scrubbing through 27 minutes of video, which can be pretty boring, but I saw a flash. So I went back and I slowed it down, and here's just 6-second clip of what I got. So you got to watch carefully. There it is. I was like, oh my gosh. So then I had to figure out how to get a frame out of the whole video. And this was the winning photo. You may notice on the left side of the sun there, in line with the tail, there was, in the video, it's hard to see it unless you slow it down. You got the jet wash kind of disturbing the vision of the sun. So that kind of was a neat little add-on. And so that was my winning photo. And that's my presentation.
Thank you. Is there a question? No question. Here's our question from the Zoomy people. Oh boy. So our next presenter is going to be Randy Canfield, who will present from Zoom.
I will indeed. Thanks, Tim. I can get the share button to work. Okay, so I shot the Andromeda Galaxy, and I want to talk a little bit more about kind of my journey in.
Your image is not being shared. We don't see it.
Don't see. Share twice. Now you see, yes?
Now we can see.
Okay, thanks. So Andromeda Galaxy I shot on September 2nd of this year, and was a journey to get there. So here's the image. And it's one of my first astro images. I've been tinkering for a while with different bits and pieces, and this is one of the first that I put all the pieces together and created an image worth sharing, I thought. Details of that image, the data were collected September 2nd, like I said, at the Barbie Ranch in San Benito County, which is a private property a buddy of mine has up in the Central Valley, west of Coalinga, if you know the area, the Portal 2 skies. I did 20 images each of RGB at 3 minutes per. Bin one gain of 89. I added 20 darks and 20 flats and processed them all in PixInsight with the same add-ins that Mr. Parks explained to get the final image. My setup is the Takahashi TSA 120 with a reducer. Got a spotting scope with a camera on it, mounted on a Lasmandi G11 with the latest revision of the Gemini 2 computer on a heavy duty tripod. ZWO parts I have hanging off the rig or the 2600 main camera, the black and white camera, same one you saw earlier. I have the 220 guide camera for tracking and staying on target. I use the ASI Air Plus little, it used to be, what's the mini computer, Raspberry Pis. I think they built their own cards now though. So it's that genre of a computer. And I used electronic filter wheel with the Chrome RGB filters and an automated electronic focuser that refocuses every, you can program it. So I set it up to refocus every 1 degree drop in temperature. And whenever I change filters, it will pause and refocus to make sure you got good crisp images. And then I did all the processing in PixInsight. So it's sort of a standard sort of stuff. That's the scope and mount and tripod and skeet and trap launching rig. But out in the wilderness, basically, there's a farmhouse and about 1,200 acres. So it's a nice, dark, quiet place to be. So getting to that point, when I joined LAS, it was actually at the time that I purchased the Lasmandi mount from another LAS member, not real active, Carlson, Ben Carlson, lives down by LAX. So I started, like most good journeys, figuring out what's the destination, right? Kind of wanted to know where I want to end up before I start on the road. So I did a lot of looking at images, and I've been playing with photography since high school. Very active in photography and done some studio stuff and glamour photography and still life stuff. And astrophotography was the next challenge for me. I wanted to figure out what sort of images I wanted to collect. Once I figured that out, I started trying to learn how to do that. So lots of education, lots of reading, lots of online, looking at all the podcasters and all of their recommendations and training. Probably the best piece of the reading I did was the astrophotography manual. It should be the astrophotography manual, I guess. Chris Woodhouse. It's 430 pages of sort of a master's level treatise, I think, on everything you need to know about astrophotography, down to how semiconductor chips are designed and what the well depth and pixels are and how to match all of those things to your equipment, all that sort of stuff. So lots of good education. I find that once I understand the theory, I can apply it in practice much more effectively. So I figured out a lot of education stuff, started looking at what equipment I wanted to acquire to do this work, then learning about how to do the processing, and that was a journey in itself. Lots of different applications. You've heard folks talking about what they use to process their images. And I finally landed on PixInsight, which is a scary proposition. Very challenging learning curve. I think there's 160 some tools you can use. It's sort of like Adobe on steroids for astrophotography. It's open source. constantly evolving with developers plugging in new stuff. So I bit the bullet and got PixInsight and started learning how to use that. And then had to figure out how to do the data capture, the setup, the framing, the collection, data collection, the processing, the managing of files. When you've got 300, 400 files that you need to put in the right places and process in the right way, there's a learning curve involved. So I did all this. I kind of started small, get my feet wet a little bit. I had my Nikon 750 on a Skyguider Pro, and I did a few shots and played with that for a while. And then I got a William Optics Redcat 71 with a one-shot color camera, and did a little more tinkering with that and learning and experimenting. And then OPT went out of business, had their auction, and I saw they had a Takahashi TSA 120 on the auction block, and I was able to procure that scope, mounted it on that Losmandy G11, and spent my monthly allowance on bits and pieces until I had all the bits I needed to build the whole system. I invested in the Adam Block training in PixInsight, which I found invaluable. He teaches the way I learn. So all the dozens of others training snippets I looked at were offering steps to follow to get an image, and didn't talk about theory or background or anything like that. Adam Block's a very different approach to training, and I found it synchronized with the way I learn. So it was a very good match. Next step I had to figure out is how to pick targets. You know, what is it a desirable image? Look at images and find ones that you like. And is the target available? What's in the sky this time of the year? At what point? Where are they at in the sky? Are they close to the zenith? Are they low to the horizon? Will they fit in my camera image size? What filters do I need? And then I had to spend practice processing, working through all the iterations in PixInsight to put all the pieces together and end up with one image out of the hundreds that you start with. So it was, this whole learning curve is kind of what got me to where now I feel like I'm able to produce an image. And am very thankful for all who voted for me and for LAS providing the opportunity to learn from others and take advantage of the properties and resources available. Much appreciated.
Question?
Do we have a question? Or two, or none? Is there any questions from the Zoom people? Aha, you explained everything with crystal clarity. Everybody understood everything. No questions. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Tim.
So our last two presenters will be here in person, and the first will be Alan Durr, who looked at Rho Ophiuchi. Okay.
Hi.
Here you are. Remember to hold the microphone.
Okay, I'm Alan Durr. I've been doing. Can you hear me? Okay, I've been doing Milky Way photography and some eclipse photography for a while now. And about a year ago, I started getting into deep space, and I and I found it a bit of a learning curve, but I finally got past that and started taking some pictures. I volunteer up on the technical team in Mount Wilson on the 100-inch, and Tom Masterson did a photo of, let me see if I have a hard time saying it, Ro up Ochi. One of his images was a NASA image of the day, and and so I tried to take the same picture again, and I made 2 attempts at it, and the one you see is my last attempt. I was surprised when I got into this how much creative control there is in how you present this stuff, because a lot of this color is kind of artificial color. We push the image data that we have to get the color out, and I found, I didn't realize there was this much creativity in astrophotography, in the composition, placement of the lights and darks and the clouds. But it's been fun, and let me tell you about this image. It's a colorful cloud complex, and it's I read that it's photographed a lot by astrophotographers, but I haven't seen that many images. And let me tell you the technical parts. I wanted to shoot more. I think I shot this from Lockwood. Yes, I did. Lockwood has a few trees. I wanted to shoot a lot more. I wanted to shoot 30, but I only got 14 lights, and 30 biases and flats, and no darks. And I stacked them up with Serial, and I did my photo editing with Lightroom and Photoshop. My equipment was an ASCAR V. It's a convertible telescope, so it has a 80 millimeter and a 60 millimeter front element, and it's got a reducer, flattener, and extender. So I shot this, I think, at a shorter focal length, 270, and my camera was a ZWO ASI 2600, one-shot color. I guided it, and I used ASI Air Plus, and let's see, also software included. I used Photoshop, Topaz, Star Exterminator, and on Apple computer. That's it. Any questions?
Is there a question? There is a question way in the back. Can you rattle off the software again for the Mac users?
Okay. I started in Cyril, as SIRL, I think it is, and then I brought it into Photoshop. Once in Photoshop, I separated out the stars and the nebulae into two layers. I use Topaz Photo AI to denoise. I use, and I said I use Star Exterminator to separate the stars and the nebulae. I controlled them. I was able to adjust the clouds' color separately from the stars, and between the balance of the two is how I developed this image. In Photoshop, I used, I think it's the choir module in there. It's the controls are very similar to Lightroom, and I use Lightroom once I get it into a TIFF format. Thank you.
Is there a question from the Zoom crowd? I
Question?
hear nothing.
Question.
Oh, question. There is a question. Yeah.
So you're using an ASI 2600, not a cheap camera, not the most expensive one out there, but certainly more on the expensive end. Can you advise someone that wants to get into this? Did you need that camera to get this quality? Do you have experience with lower end cameras enough to say that you wouldn't have gotten anything near this good with a lower?
Well, I did move from both Fuji and Nikon to a dedicated camera. I was trying to get more of the infrared part of the spectrum, and that's what this camera allows me to do. I did not want to convert one of my existing cameras.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Do you have experience with lower end standalone like ZWOs?
No, I don't. I just got another ZWO camera, SI 858, which has got a small sensor with smaller pixels, and with that one I hope to do some more imaging with with planets and see how I do there. That's a really small sensor, and I've only played with it a couple of nights now, and it's really, and I'm trying to use it on a new telescope that I got a hold of. It's a 10-inch f6.3 Meade, and but I don't get enough clear skies right now.
Beautiful work. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think cheaper end 533 might be like the same exact QE, but it's just a little bit smaller. So I think that's like the most what serious beginners would start off with. And I've seen someone use it before, and it produces same results, but just smaller resolution.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Our last presenter of the night will be Nasir Jivanji, who will also present here. You need to hook up your laptop. Okay, looks like everybody can see it.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Hello. Yes? Okay. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, my name is Nasir Jivanji, and I'm a member of Los Angeles Astronomy Society for the last 7-8 years. And have been doing this astrophotography for the last 5-6 years, and I've been presenting pretty much every year, whatever I take throughout the year, and summarize it, all my best shots. So I don't have any prize-winning photos like previous speakers, but this is my best work so far this year. And this year also, I'm also showing some of the photos I took with smartphones or mobile astrophotography, because the smartphones have become too smart. So anyway, the stuff that I'm going to show you about deep sky and some solar eclipse, the comets, the moon, and some of the photography I did when I went to Peru this year. And for the first time, it was Southern Hemisphere, and did some imaging with my smartphone. So let's start. So my best shot this year, the same old Andromeda galaxy. But it never amazes me. I mean, I've done this a zillion times probably. But every time I do it, I try to do it get better and better. So this time, what I did was, I have a 140 millimeter Explorer Scientific refractor. So the field of view is pretty narrow, and this is huge. So I tried to do a mosaic, and I haven't had much luck with mosaic because mosaic is tricky. Stitching together, nice blending is tricky. But I nevertheless did 6-panel mosaic, so and in RGB and H alpha. And by the way, all this astrophotography I do is from my backyard, middle of Los Angeles, middle of San Fernando Valley, Bottle 9 skies. So it's tough. Lot of hours of imaging. So in this case, each panel was about 3 hours. So, and there were 4 filters and 6 panels. So you can do the math. Total 72 hours, approximately 72 hours for this imaging. And I mean, as usual, I mean, it looks okay, but I mean, I was amazed. I mean, I didn't do the good job in blending, and the colors are not so great, but I was amazed with the amount of details I got. Like, this is the NGC 206, one of the objects in Andromeda Galaxy. This is called a star cloud. This, and I can see a lot of details in the dust lanes, and also some of the star forming regions of the Andromeda Galaxy. There's red regions. They are high emission H alpha regions. It's like M40 Orion nebulas of Andromeda Galaxy. Yeah. And you can see some of the blendings. It's not being, you can see some lines here, which was hard to get rid of. But nevertheless, I'm happy with the details I got, and thanks to AI plugins like Blur and Noise Exterminator, got rid of the noise, and the sharpness is pretty good. I mean, I hardly see any noise. So that's one of my best shot of Andromeda so far. And then there is this galaxy, M110. We don't see, so we don't care about it because it comes for free when you take Andromeda. But, okay. So here, anyway, the zoomed version, I had actually did this because I was not sure I was able to zoom in on the image or not, but I was able to show you the zoomed. So I'm not going to go through this again. But here's the M110, satellite galaxy of M31. So this is, normally I've never seen so much, bothered to observe this, but I can see some little bit details here. Some dust lanes or something. So this also came out pretty good actually. So in this 72 hours of exposure. But anyway, this particular frame was probably about 12 hours because 4 filters and 1 frame. Yeah. Anyway, so that's my Andromeda. And then there are a bunch of other stuff that I did this year. This is Sombrero Galaxy, which is, I'm not sure exactly how many hours this is, but not too many, maybe 10, 15, 20 at the most. But yeah, I'm still happy with the details in the dust lane, but I probably need to do better. But maybe I need to go 40, 50 hours and I get better image. And another one, one of the favorites in the sky, the double cluster. I've done this again many times, but again, this one is pretty sharp. The colors are good on the stars, a little bit on the bright side. The red it didn't come out so good, but still nice and sharp, so it looks pretty good to me. But only 2 hours, LRGB. Okay. And 101, again, this one, I try to get too much details. I've done this before, but this is again about 45 hours. And it's okay. I'm not too happy with the, because the colors didn't come out so good, and probably my flats were not so good, so I was too much background stuff in there. Hard to go to the next slide once you zoom in. Anyway, this is another favorite galaxy cluster, the Markarian chain, and the whole thing is called Markarian chain, but it's a bunch of, this is M84, this is M86, these are called I galaxies. If you go to the Griffith, the museum outside, there's a big picture. Part of it is this. You must have noticed this. And again, this is just, there are no colors in there, so I'm not sure why there are no colors in here, but maybe this is just L filter, but I'm pretty sure I must have taken RGB, but it's only 8 hours of exposure. This is one of the recent one I did. First time I've actually imaged this, only 3 hours, Pelican Nebula. I have to do this more to get rid of some more noise on this. There's still some noise. Just for 3 hours is not enough. Of course, if I go to Logwood, 3 hours I would get amazing photo. But from Bottle 9 skies, you have to have a lot more time. This one, again, I've done many times, but this is in different color schemes, all narrowband, or O3H, alpha, and S2 filters. And again, the sharpness is, I'm happy with the sharpness here. So that's why I did this again. M13, one of the favorites objects again. And the stars are pretty sharp here. This is one of my best images. I've done this again many times, but this is probably my best, M13. And some of the galaxies that I've zoomed in here, this galaxy and this galaxies are pretty remote. This is 50 million light years away, but this is actually, you can't believe this is actually, according to our Sky Safari, is 500 million light years away, 500 million light years away. Unbelievable. Okay, so this year was pretty active. Sunspot, the year of sunspots, because it's almost near the peak. So I did some imaging of sunspot, but basically this was the spots which was responsible for those amazing northern lights in this year in month of May. I think this was the culprit, the guilty. So I just had to take those spots too, image those. Then I'm going to show you some of the pictures I took with my iPhone 14 Pro. And of course, the comet. And the smartphone was the best to take pictures of comet. This one's taken from Griffith Park. The interesting thing here was the juxtaposition of this two Hollywood ball beams competing with the tail of the comet. So I think that was kind of interesting. Then I went to Santa Monica Mountains and did some more imaging of the comet. The next day, it was still pretty bright. And this is the stacked version. There are two images. One is in color and one is in black and white. Yeah, this spot is probably because of the dew on my camera. But these are okay images, nothing exciting. I'm sure the people have taken some amazing photos. But this is just what with my smartphones. And again, this year was the year of eclipse. And I didn't bring any fancy stuff to image eclipse this year, I just brought my smartphone. This was when I was chasing the cloud and shooting through the moonroof of a car. And then again, these are taken with the smartphone. This is Jupiter here, and this is doing the totality. Yeah. And the clouds showed up just before the eclipse was start to happen in Austin. I was waiting, and yeah, then I actually found out that these are a special kind of cloud. They're called as undulatus clouds. Has to do with some periodic occurrence that causes this kind of interesting 2-in-1 eclipse and this clouds. Okay, these pictures of the moon, they look pretty sharp and just taken through my telescope and iPhone and eyepiece projection, basically. So I was kind of amazed with the sharpness I got. I guess my refractor was 140 millimeter, and that's the power of the telescope. But this is through the eyepiece on my phone. And then also I was one day just playing, trying to play with focuser during early evening, and there was nothing in the sky. I said, okay, I'll just look at the moon. And I was not looking for this X sign, but by chance I saw it, and I said, oh wow, what is that? Oh, this is that famous X sign. I got lucky. So I said, great. It actually lasted for quite a while. I thought it might last for a very short time, but it actually lasted for a few hours. Okay, what's that little truck kind of a thing, four-wheeler? This was just one day I was, I think at Griffith, I was showing this Jupiter to those people in public star party, and I noticed this interesting pattern. It was so funny. I mean, yeah. Basically you get this pattern, I guess, when all the 4 moons of Jupiter are not perfectly aligned in their orbit around the Jupiter. So there is normally you see them all lined up, more or less in a straight line, or a little bit curved line. But this is the first time I saw this pattern, and that's interesting. This also shows that actually all the 4 moons plane, orbital plane is not perfectly aligned. If they were aligned, they would never show up like that with the gap. And recently we did this astro trip with Keith. We were at GMARS. Kind of interesting juxtaposition with the Joshua trees. It's part of some Milky Way and Joshua tree. And now to Peru, southern hemisphere. The sky was pretty dark. That's the Milky Way, just with the smartphone. And then the thing I really wanted to see from Peru was these large and small Magellanic clouds. And I didn't bring my fancy camera, so I actually had to get up early morning and wait for these things to come up. They were not really visible with naked eye. You could barely see it. But with phone, this is on the left side is a single frame, single image. On the right side, I took multiple images and tried to stack it, but stacking probably didn't work very well, but did shows a little bit better these galaxies. These are small galaxies, satellite galaxies of our own Milky Way. But at least I was able to capture it with my phone. And then, of course, as you know, that when we go to the southern hemisphere, all the constellations from the northern sky seems inverted and confusing. So I had to also see it. And of course, seeing is believing. So yeah, you can see the sword of the Orion is up and the belt is below. We are used to seeing it in the southern, facing south. In Peru, I was facing north. So that's why it looks inverted both vertically and horizontally. This is actually in the city of Arequipa in Peru, and this is the Mount Misti. It's a pretty high mountain, 14,000 feet. And that's also, Pleiades also looked inverted to me. Okay, so this is my observatory in my backyard. Actually, I built this myself about a year ago. It's a simple, it's not a fancy roll-off roof. Roof is very simple. It's very light, and but very strong. This, so I can just push it with my 2 fingers, and boom, it goes back, and then pull it back. That's it. It's all manual, and I have this my pier, which made of a pipe, 4-inch, but I think it's still not good. I have to fill this up with concrete or something to make it more stable. It still has some little instability if you push it, but as long as there's no wind, nothing, it stays pretty solid. So that's it. Thank you. If you have any questions? Yeah.
Thank you. Is there a question? Way back in the back. He's asking if the smartphone photos were handheld or on a tripod.
All handheld, everything, nothing on hand.
Everything handheld. Is there a question from Zoom? Okay. Let's get on to the door prizes. Thank you.
All right, for those on Zoom, only 10 of you have registered out of the almost 30 that are on Zoom, so go ahead and register now. I'll repost the link.
So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to give away 3 prizes indoors and 3 prizes on Zoom instead of the 4 that we did last time. And we have way too many green lasers, so a lot of you people are going to walk away with green lasers. We're going to give away 2 green lasers and 1 online store item, both to the people in here and to the people on Zoom. And David has our tickets and his announcer voice.
Thank you very much, Tim. Welcome to the LAS raffle. Here we go. First number is 8335099. Who won? Come on down.
I hope you like green lasers.
You don't have one? Congratulations, Sandy.
Now you do.
Okay. So we can bring it up to you if you want, okay? How's that? Okay.
Okay, for those on Zoom, I'm going to close it out in about another 30 seconds or so, so please get registered if you want.
And there's a charger in there. You want to charge the battery for a while, okay?
We'll give away the online store item next.
And the next number is 8335114. All right, we got a winner.
Oh, hey, I know who that is. Okay, it's Larry. Yeah.
It's Larry.
Okay, so Larry wins the online store item. So that means you can buy something in the online store and we'll pay for it.
And the last number is 8335097. There you go. Okay.
Give him a laser. Laser?
Yep.
I'm going to give you a laser.
Well, there you go, sir. Congratulations. Just don't shine at anything nearby. Okay, go ahead, Spencer. It's all yours.
Okay, first one is John Willison. John, are you on?
Is that John Wilson?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So, David, what did he win?
He run a green laser.
Okay. Let's see, the next one
Next
is,
one
hang on, let me...
will be online store.
Hang on. Okay.
Go ahead, Spencer, with number 2.
All right. It's Greg Schwartz.
Greg Schwartz.
I'm here.
Okay, Superman wins a online store. Congratulations. One item from the online store. Okay. And
Third one is Nick
last one
Hogan.
will be a green laser.
Nick Hogan.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm here.
You're welcome. Okay. Congratulations, Nick.
Thank you.
That should do it. Don't forget to come to our banquet. It's a lot of fun. Everybody enjoys it. That's like the highlight of the
Tim?
year. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Tim.
Yeah.
Yeah, because our next meeting isn't a meeting, I think I better announce this. Right now, January the 13th, that's a Monday. That's when the moon rises, and pretty soon after that, I think it was 5:50 or something like that. It occults Mars. Mars will reemerge at about 6:45. I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I've been writing about it in preparation for both the Griffith Observatory webpage and the Griffith Observer magazine. At this point in time, I don't think there'll be a public event at Griffith, but Griffith will hold a web broadcast. But that may change. I don't know. We're still roughly a month away from this event, so we'll see what happens. But the last thing I heard was yes to a web broadcast, no to any public event actually held up at Griffith Observatory. But primarily because it's on a Monday and the Griffith is normally closed. But I thought
Those times are in the evening.
yes, that's our local time. If I remember right, I'm pretty sure it was 5:50 p.m. So and it's almost a full moon. If it's not a full moon, it's so close. It might as well be a full moon. And then at 6:45 or 6:44, one of those two, the event ends. Now, if you're gonna try and observe this event, keep in mind the last time Griffith held an event and tried to observe the moon occulting Mars, that only took 30 seconds for it to disappear and reappear. So you better be set up and waiting for it. This is not a casual event if you want to observe it. You got to be set up and wait for it. And that's it.
Okay, that was January 13th.
Yeah, that's a Monday. For
Okay.
those that are into Mars stuff, closest approach to Mars is on the 12th, the Sunday before. So far as I know, nothing special at Griffith for that event. And opposition is the 13th, 14th, 15th. That's a Thursday. Is the 16th of that same week. So there's three things happening with Mars that week. But the only one I know Griffith is going to do something with, assuming good weather, of course, is the 13th. And that will be a web broadcast for now.
Okay, thank you. Everybody look up Mars occultation and Mars opposition and Mars closest approach. It all happens in January. Okay, Patrick says just a web broadcast and that's it.
Okay.
So thank you for coming to the LAAS meeting. Come to the banquet or you'll have me to deal with. Thank you and good night.
Oh, and the Zoom people, hang around, okay? We could talk.
Zoom people can do whatever they want. We're here. We're leaving.
Okay, I'll leave the Zoom session open for another 15 or 20 minutes before I close it down.
Yeah, last time we talked till 10:30, so we'll see. Already a ton of people bailed on us.
All right.
And there goes another one.
Well, some people are here. What'd
Yeah.
you have in mind?
Yep. I'm trying to get this thing. What the heck's going on? I'll forget it. Gallery. Okay, here we go.
So Eric, if you want to talk cameras, glad to chat.
Thanks. Yeah, I've been thinking about getting one for a while. keep hoping I'd see some deal on eBay or something on a used one, so I could get something high end for a deal. But people seem to know what they're worth, because I'm not seeing any amazing deals.
Oh yeah. The what's important is to match your camera to your optical train. So you need to know how much pixels per arc second kind of stuff. So you match the sensor to your OTA if you to optimize, right? So the other attribute is sensor size. You can have a small sensor, full size sensor. So it just depends how wide your image, actual native image is. So you can get the same kind of technology in a smaller frame, then a full size frame will be cheaper. And the ZWO site has lots of good information on how to pick the right camera, depending what you want to do, what kind of images you want to shoot, what kind of telescopes you want to put it on, that sort of stuff. One shot color or black and white with filters.
Yeah, but you got to be careful, because the old rule with planet photography still holds. You're going to be seeing dominant. And so I encountered early on, I started using surveillance cameras, low light surveillance cameras in the early 1990s. And I had pretty good results until I got to use the C16 over at the Caltech campus. And then I realized there is such a thing as with eyepieces as too much magnification, because with wide field images, you can be, but you're not as much limited by seeing as you are with planets. Planets, that's the one reason why we can't get good planet images at Garvey Ranch, because we've got a 4.7-inch aperture scope that's operating at f/24. I'm not kidding. And it's a rare night that the seeing can support any camera at that focal ratio. I mean, it's one of those things. So I agree with that you have to match the pixel size to your optics. But with planets, there's that additional thing of you got 20 miles worth of atmosphere above you. Good luck.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that. Deep sky, you can't go too low in magnification, because then you have no resolution on the stars. Ideally, you want to have a few pixels for each star. If you have only one pixel for each star, you're cooked there too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And insofar as what was asked earlier, it's like what Randy says. It depends on what you're trying to photograph. But the thing is that with anything, the more pixels, the better, within reason. Again, with planets, if you have too many pixels, the pixels are too small, and you're seeing dominant, as you always is with planets, you're in trouble. So it's a balancing act. But there's all sorts of sources on the internet. If you can't find any, we got one of the best sources I know of in Vance Tyree. And fortunately for Vance and myself, we're recovering enough from our different ailments that we're at Garvey Ranch now, back to our usual every Wednesday night. But so if you want technical details on all this stuff, ask Vance Tyree, because he runs circles around me. I'm in the middle. As Curtis Byram said one time, boy, if we can only combine what Dave said with what Vance said and kind of hit for an average, that would be the ideal imaging talk. Because Vance went into the minutia and I went into the general stuff. And somewhere in the middle is the truth.
Thanks, Dave.
Sure. No problem. No problem, Eric.
Is any visual observers out there, or is it all imagers?
No, it's all imagers.
Not all imagers?
No. We observe No,
But no, I know you observe, David, but I'm just
no.
you're,
But we do
you're
visual observing, and
yeah, but you're mostly imaging. I'm just asking
no.
if there's any diehard visual observers on the feed, and if not, that's cool. That's it's a hobby. We all do what we want to do. But are there any diehard visual observers out there? I'm just asking.
Yeah, I am. That's one reason I go to Garvey Ranch. That's an 8-inch f12 refractor, and it's a very good
Okay.
refractor.
Yeah.
And on the planets, I prefer that view a
Eh,
lot more. I see
by
a
deep
lot more
by
detail than I
by
can.
visual. And honestly, so that's cool, and I understand visual observing, but for I'm talking about deep sky. I'm talking about dark sky type stuff. Is anybody on the line that's a deep sky observer? I'm just asking. And again, I'm not dissing what you're doing. I love what you do, but I'm just asking. There's folks who are, a 13th magnitude galaxy is a cool thing. Anybody? Going?
I think it's cooler with an imager.
No, that's cool. I get it. I get it.
See,
Listen,
Randy agrees with
I am
me.
not
He's laughing. It's
judging.
like, yeah.
I'm not judging. I got my 18-inch telescope. I'm a visual observer. I did astrophotography when it was film because the hard stuff was under the dark night sky. Now with imaging, it's in front of the computer, and that's cool. I love I mean, it's amazing what is produced, but I'm a visual observer, and I'm just asking if there's others out there that
Okay.
are the same. But if not, that is cool. And I'll leave you to your discussion. That is great. And it's a hobby, and clear
Yeah, but Dave,
skies. It's also amazing.
I'll say to you what I say to Giovanni Somoza when he claimed I'm not an observer because I always image. I am an observer. There's just an extra step in between. Instead of gathering photons and funneling into my eye, I gather photons, convert them to electrons, convert them back to photons, and then observe that.
Yeah,
And I get a much
David, you
brighter
truly
image
do
than
not
you
have to
do.
justify it. What,
Well,
however
you're
you
making me
enjoy
do
this
it.
hobby, it is a hobby. We're not being paid. This is not our job. However you enjoy the hobby. Folks who use go-to mounts versus star hopping, folks who use unistellars versus getting the photons to the retina, I really don't care. It's a hobby, and that's great. And but I just was curious if there's anybody who is like a nutty Dob guy like I am who doesn't image and just and I don't even sketch. I mean, there's the diehard sketchers, and I like to check off my list, and describe what I see, and that's what I do. But that's cool, and so there's room in
Other
this
birds of the
for all of us.
other birds of the same feather, huh, Dave?
Exactly. So hey,
Yes.
I'm gonna tag out, but wonderful night. Good night.
See ya.
Good night. I'm going to drop out too. Thanks a lot.
Hop off in a minute as well.
Jack kicked off early. Wow, interesting.
Different time zone.
They're disappearing.
Yeah, I got a 4 o'clock reveille. I got a boogie too.
All right.
See you next time.
Clear and steady skies, everyone.
Yep.
Should I keep an eye out for an email with the store link and whatever I need to use to get that?
I should think so, but you're part of the Group IO thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just if you don't get an answer by tonight, just go ahead and email something. So somebody's got to know that because other people probably asked that same question and probably got the same answer. So, but yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Nice meeting all of you.
Nice meeting you, man.
And there were two.
Ah!
It's my first meeting actually, so it was great to to kind of sit in one for the first time. I'm glad I was finally able to make it, even if just over Zoom.
Yeah, the physical meeting has certain constraints. My biggest constraint is that it's a 30-mile drive for me one way, and it's like, okay, so I got to drive 30 miles through traffic, 3 freeways to get to Griffith Observatory, and I usually don't show up any earlier than 7:30, and you can't show up any earlier than 7 because they don't open up the building
Right.
until then. And then because the whole park closes down at 10 p.m., everybody's got to shove out the door. And like, for instance, according to my clock, they've got 7 minutes to do that. You got to shove them out the door and get them down the hill, get them past that gate. And last time, the last meeting, me and Jack were talking away, and I, like I'm doing right now, I looked at the clock and go, "Hey, Jack, do you realize it's 10:25?" See, we couldn't do that at Griffith.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair.
The other thing that we no longer do, principally because of the aging of the membership, is a lot of those members, I'm not one of them, but we used to go out and have dinner at one of the local restaurants, House of Pies, Conrad's. First off, a lot of those restaurants bit the dust thanks to the pandemic. And the second, a lot of the old timers were advised not to eat so late in the evening. And I kept telling him, it's one day out of the month. I don't think that's going to kill you, okay? But once you get 2 colonoscopies like I do, it kind of puts a little bit of the fear of God in you. Okay.
But yeah, I think at some point I'll probably go to one meeting there just to feel it out. But I live in Burbank, so even for me, Griffith's closer, but still, traffic in LA is always brutal.
Yeah, I think a week or so ago, I work at Griffith actually. I had to
Oh,
be
nice.
there at a certain time. I took off an hour and a half early. 2 hours later, I finally got there and I was late. And that was thanks to total parking lot on the 210, total parking lot on the 134, and then total parking lot on the 5. And I knew better than to take the surface streets because if anything, they were going to move slower, especially parallel to the 134 because all the damn traffic lights
on
the street.
Ugh.
I did that one time and I said, that's it. The first chance, but the problem is the first chance you get to hop back on the freeway is about 5 miles down the road.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, oh, I will never do that again. Never, ever, ever.
I
Terrible.
know. Usually Google Maps will always tell me to take surface streets, and a lot of times I'm tempted, but there's been a few times where I've taken them and I've actually gotten there later.
Yeah.
And I think, nope, that was a terrible call.
I think I calculated that and I thought, wait a minute, I think the freeway was doing like 20 miles an hour. I was doing 10 thanks to all those traffic lights for the 5 miles of the surface streets. I was like, oh, Jesus.
So rough. What can you do?
I want my flying car. I
Yep.
want it now.
That would be a very hot commodity in LA.
Oh yeah, and I could just see the cars falling out of the sky because if people drive them like the way they drive cars, we're all
Oof.
doomed.
Yeah. Oh well, eventually.
Yeah. So hopefully, now I don't think they announced this, but we're gonna have another show and tell in March. That's never happened before. The reason why is because a lot of the photograph contestant winners couldn't show up tonight.
Okay.
So they're going to show off their stuff in March. And hopefully I'll have video very close up of Mars being occulted by the moon. I've taken it with pretty much the whole moon there. And then I took it where maybe if you see behind me, maybe about half the moon was visible, but now I'm going to take a very small section and hopefully show, yeah, this really is Mars coming out.
That's awesome.
I know. If I can,
That'd be really
pull
cool.
that off. I have the equipment. I have a 7-inch f/15 Maxudov, and I have a high resolution a camera. And if I can track because I got an equatorial mount. Now, I think the only thing that's gonna kill it is weather, because at 550, that moon is not that high up.
Right. So it needs to be really perfect
Yeah.
conditions. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm hoping we don't get a repeat of a lunar eclipse. Me and Geo were working Griffith that day, and we had the whole place was wall to wall people, including outside. And I asked one of these people, "Why are you here?" "Oh, we were told this is the only place to see the lunar eclipse." And after a pause, I said, "You know, you could have seen this from your street, you know." And it never occurred to any these people, so they all crowded around Griffith. As usual, the news services don't do us any favors.
Yeah.
But the real tragedy was there was only one bank of clouds in the entire sky, and it was a moonrise eclipse. And guess where those clouds were?
Ugh.
Yeah, in the east. And I looked at Geo and I said, "How much money you want to bet that the eclipse will be over and then the moon will pass through the clouds?" And Gio gave me a strange look. I'm not sure what that meant. But when I was proven true, he gave me a nasty look. He said, "You jinxed us." I said, "I didn't know such a thing. It's a cloud that jinxed us. What are you talking about?"
And if
But
you
yeah,
put money on it, you would have won a lot of money.
yeah, too bad. Yeah, I was gonna willing to go up to $100 on that
Yeah.
one. But he said, nah, because he saw it too. It was the worst lunar eclipse at Griffith that I've witnessed.
Oh, that's such a bummer.
Yeah, that would have been something. If it wasn't for the clouds. Because even it's just like solar eclipses. Every lunar eclipse is unique. The very last one that I tried to photograph for Griffith, the moon was so dark, and Dr. Krupp happened to come by my equipment, and we both looked up, and I turned to him and says, "This is strangely reminiscent of another dark lunar eclipse, but I can't pin the date in my mind." And he thought about it for a second. So 1992.
Wow.
And the reason why was the same. A volcanic eruption, a massive volcanic eruption happened, and the dust made the Earth's shadow a lot darker. We didn't see a blood red moon. We saw a dark gray moon, both in 92 and this one was like a few years ago. So it's like, well, I'm tracking it and I'm getting something with the camera, which is another reason you should use a camera every now and then. But it's like, wow, this is the second darkest eclipse I've ever seen in my life. The one in 92 was so dark, the moon rose in the Earth's shadow, and we couldn't see it. And finally I said, all right, I know it's at this azimuth. I know it's about 10 degrees high. And I stared and stared. I finally saw a very faint, almost black disc. And people thought it was a joke. I said, "It's right there." "Where?" "Look up, right above that tree. See that dim thing, that dim disc?" I said, "That can't be the moon. I got news for you. That's the moon."
Wow.
Yep, 92.
That's really cool.
Yeah, except that we try to look at it with our telescopes, and it's like, oh God, this is not
not cool for
working.
telescopes, but
Yeah. What can you do? So hopefully we won't have a volcanic eruption somewhere in the next month. Hopefully, we won't have clouds right there. And hopefully it's an early evening, so hopefully we'll have a Santa Ana wind the night before or even that night. It'll clear off everything. That's we can only hope.
Exactly. I just Googled a picture of the 1992 moon, and I see what you're saying. It's all gray.
Yep. Yep. You had a better chance the further you're away from Pinatubo. And unfortunately, we weren't.
Hmm.
We weren't. Yep. Yep.
Oh well, like you said, we can only hope, weather permitting.
Yeah, that's true. We'll see. Anyway, I'm glad I remembered to mention that because it's like, yeah, wait a minute. The next meeting is technically the 19th, and it's not a true meeting. So it's like, oh, I gotta put the alert out.
Yeah, no, it's a
Fortunately,
good call out.
yeah. Fortunately, my boss Patrick was there. That's the Patrick that Tim mentioned, and he confirmed that yeah, we're not going to hold a public event. Yeah, it's just too much trouble to try and do it. And plus the fact that if you want to look at it through the telescope, the problem is you got 30 seconds as it's being covered over, and you got 30 seconds as it's being uncovered, and you can't. There's not enough scopes that you could set up to do that.
Right.
I think the last time this happened, they set up 3 huge monitors. I couldn't believe this. 3 huge monitors to act as one screen. And then I think they took my feed and displayed it down there. Because it was in front of the observatory. I was on the roof, so I couldn't see what was going on out front. So I called out to somebody down there, and I says, "Which feed do we got down there? It looks like yours, Dave." Oh, really?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So
excited to finally I have an older telescope that I've been using a little bit, but I've mostly just been reading, just trying to kind of learn a lot more before I, kind of go out and search for stuff. Both reading about the telescope, but also on my Christmas list that Santa, my wife, may be getting me is a sea star actually. So yeah, so that would be I think a cool way to kind of test everything out too and have a little guidance as well to try to help find some things before I learn a lot of knowledge and be able to search for them on my own.
Yeah. That's a good way to start, although in my opinion, a little expensive. Just be aware these small automated scopes cannot do planets.
Right.
So that's the only thing.
Yep.
On that note, I would still recommend if you want to go for the pure visual view, an 8 to 10 inch Dobsonian. Doesn't matter what brand. They're all pretty much equally good. If you really want help to observe with a Dobsonian, at the only star party I attended this year, because I broke my back in April.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, me too. This year has been an absolute disaster. For the first 3 months, the weather prevented me from setting up my equipment or going to a Griffith Public Star Party. And then the 6 months right in the middle is back recuperation time. And then the last 3 months, I've finally been able to walk and drive around enough. But the circumstances, the last public star party this last Saturday, I was hoping to do it, but nah, it just didn't pan out for me. So hopefully next year I'll make up for all this lost time. But
nice.
I would at the one part star party, this guy used his smartphone for star charts and selected an object, and his daub moved by itself.
Oh wow.
Now, I'm not sure how expensive that's going to run you, but it's still cheaper than certain other options, for sure.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good call. I'm gonna take a note of that. Yeah, the scope I have is a Meade ETX 90.
Yeah, that's a relatively on the small side. Yeah, I would go For visual, not photographic, for visual, at least an 8-inch and probably no more than a 10-inch. Why that size range? Because too much smaller and you don't have enough oomph. Too large. And the question is, do you really feel like setting up something this heavy?
Yeah.
No, it's true. No, it's true. I went to light equipment even before the back, and I've never regretted it because it's like, yeah, it's a lot easier to set up and enjoy with light equipment, and you observe more. The old adage in astronomy is, what's the best scope for you? Which one are you using most often? If you use a scope once a year, why are you bothering?
Yeah.
But if you use it at least once a month, if not more than that, then it's like, yeah. And I can set up a 10-inch Dobsonian even now in about 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, that's
And it's
pretty
taking
fast.
it out of that's including taking it out of the car.
Okay.
10 minutes.
Nice.
3 minutes flat. Yeah.
Yeah. Can't beat that. 3 minutes is pretty quick.
No, no. And a 10-inch Dob will still show you a heck of a lot of stuff.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely really excited to
Yeah.
kind of start getting into everything.
Yeah. And with plenty of people to talk to and to guide your opinion. You may get varying opinion because I agree. See, I'm a mixture. I do like the visual views, and I think it's best to see the planets visually. I do imaging, deep sky to enhance these objects because, quite frankly, driving 3 miles in one direction, one way to get to a dark site, is like, and it's been that way for years. That's why I won't go to Lockwood. For me, that's a 3-hour drive.
Yeah.
The last time I did it, the prediction that the skies were going to clear, it was wet snow when I got up there. And so that's it. That's I give up. I just give up.
Yeah.
So whereas but the problem with urban is we got the light pollution. But if you're willing to accept certain limitations, it's amazing what you can visually see with that thing. One thing I would recommend from my experience is concentrate on star clusters. You got the opens and you got the globulars. Those are the easiest things to see in urban skies.
Okay. That's a really good note.
Yeah. Galaxies are horrendously tough, even for imagers. And but you can. But they're really tough for visual observers. And plus the fact the only visual objects that display any color whatsoever, star clusters. Because the opens are relatively close and bright, and the globulars, while they're not that close, instead of having a couple hundred stars, you got 10 to 100,000 stars. Numbers matter.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'll still see the Orion Nebula, the Lagoon Nebula, a lot of the nebulas around the lagoon are visible. A lot of planetaries are big and beautiful, 27, 57. The list there's quite a bit to see up there. And whether you're going with an imager or whether you're going visually, look at it. Look at these objects. Don't be a casual observer. You look for 5 milliseconds and that's it. Stare at the darn thing.
Yeah.
That really helps.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the scope that I have now, it was from years and years ago. I think oof. It was my dad's initially. It was probably from like 20 years ago, maybe a little older, and it was sitting in a damp basement. So some parts definitely don't perform as well as they should. So I think for me too, trying to set it on an object is just very like clunky. So it's hard for me to use this scope to really focus on something aside from the moon because it's very big and easy to locate. But anything else, when I get to set it, it just kind of falls sometimes. So it's, definitely not something where I can actually enjoy the sight of something. So yeah, this Christmas, I'm very excited to start, like you saying, actually looking at things for longer periods of time.
Yeah, yeah. But one thing, I admit this never doesn't happen to me that often, but I'll give one example. So I'm trying to head back before we computerized the scope up there at Garvey Ranch. I was trying to head to a globular cluster, M15, because I knew it was gonna cut through the sky glow. But I was doing it the long way. I couldn't see anything but Altair. So I said, all right, we'll use that as the first star. And I started hopping, 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 hopping. And then I was looking at the chart. I was going, there's a small globular right there. Never heard of it before. So I said, yeah, well, it's on the way. It's in a sense, star hopping is like taking a road trip. You could go straight here from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, and that's perfectly fine. But you really ought to stop off at Barstow because there's a store there that has every known soft drink on the face of the planet, including all these beers I never even heard of before. And so getting off the main road to look at something is worthwhile. So I said, no, we're there almost. So I'll just look at the small little globular. And we were surprised. It not only imaged well, we could actually see it. It was not that big, but we can actually see it. So Vance and I took note of that and says, okay, if we ever pull this off again, we're gonna hop on the way there. We're gonna take a look. Now with a computerized mount, we don't have to do that. But
Right.
But I keep remembering, yeah, we did look at that once.
Yeah, it's cool. Just kind of going off the beaten path sometimes and
Yep.
just seeing where it takes you. It's part of it is the fun of the journey rather than just, just immediately seeing something.
Yeah. And well, put it this way, there's 8,000 objects in the NGC catalog. There are 110, depending on how you count, 110 objects in the Messier catalog. Uh, so it's like just those two lists alone, you got what, 8,110 objects?
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. I haven't seen all the NGC list yet. I haven't even seen all the Messier objects yet, because some of them are pretty tough. They're so far south, it's pretty tough to see anything.
Yeah,
But we gotta try.
exactly.
Okay. And by the way, don't always listen to the books. I found that out too over the years. Some objects people say, oh, this is easy. And some other ones that nobody hardly bothers to mention. It's like, whoa, how come nobody writes about this object? It's good both visually and it's spectacular photographically. So it's like, yeah. You got a computer scope, so you just have to punch in the object list and take a look at it. It may be too small, but how are you going to know unless you look at it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the fun part,
Yeah.
seeing what you like, going through a list and just having fun.
Yeah. Except don't get your hopes up too high, because I went on a trip along the coast of Oregon and my friend insisted that we had to see this aquarium. I said, why? I said, it's the third oldest aquarium in the United States. So I said, well, that might be interesting. So we were literally along the coast, along that highway. And we went through a town, and I think this is only 40 miles an hour too. In about 30 seconds. And I looked back like, did we just pass through the town we were supposed to stop at? I don't know. So we turned around and I went at 30 miles an hour, and in 45 seconds we passed through that town. So it's like, wait a minute, something's not right here. We double checked. I said, we're gonna stop at the town sign. And that was the town where this aquarium was. It turns out that the aquarium was literally just a bunch of fish tanks along this long corridor, at the end of which was a little tiny pool with seals in it. And that was it.
Oh, that's
And
too
I
good.
told my friend, next time you see something like that, let's discuss it over lunch before we commit to this. Oh, Jesus.
Makes a good story.
Yeah, it is. So like I said, you never can tell till you look at it, but don't get your hopes up too high.
Yep. No, that's fair. I'm setting them very low so that I could be surprised rather than disappointed.
Yeah, no, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. But then you'll be surprised again and again and again.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. That's the way it is. So any case, I suppose we both better. It's 10:20. Yeah, it's 1 minute to 10:20. If Spence is on time, in 5 minutes he'll shut us down. So is there anything else you want to talk about, or shall we kick it off for tonight? Let Spence hear the crickets when he comes back online.
Yeah, I think no more questions from me now. It was
Okay.
great chatting with you, and I'm sure I'll definitely have more once I unbox Telescope and start looking through things. I'm sure I'll have plenty of questions. But for now, this was very interesting and illuminating. So thank you for all the tips.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, thanks for talking with me.
Have a great
I don't
night.
understand. Nobody sticks around anymore.
It's fun chatting.
I know, but none of these people want to chat about anything. It's like, all right. Okay. See you, Nick.
See ya.
No, I guess we're not gonna. That's right. We're not gonna zoom in to the banquet. We never have done that before. I don't think we're going to. So
We should start it.
Partly February. Yeah, right. You're
Black tie and Zoom.
On Zoom. You're right. Say goodbye, Nick.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Please.